So in this problem, we have a neutral pi tin and we have a Van de Graaff machine with a negative charge. So in order to represent that, I've drawn two shapes, a square to represent the pi tin and a Van de Graaff. Now notice the pi tin has this little, it's an upside down styrofoam cup. It's basically a suction cup. And what that means is it's totally insulated. So imagine there was no one touching the pi tin. I'm going to start both objects out neutral. And to do that, I'm going to draw 4 pluses in each one. This is an arbitrary number because each of these represents an atom, and each of these has millions, if not billions, of atoms. But I'm going to draw 4, and I'm going to draw a minus that goes with each plus. Each plus has a minus with it. I'm drawing a minus next to the plus. So each of these minus goes with the plus. So this would be a neutral because we have 4 pluses and 4 minuses, so we have a 0 net charge. So I'll write neutral here. And this one would be neutral, 4 pluses, 4 minuses, 0 net charge, because the pluses equal the minuses. So this is how we're going to begin. We're going to set up two neutral objects, but then we're going to go look back at the problem. We know the pi tin is neutral, but the Van de Graaff actually is negative. So I'm actually going to add some negative charges. Let's add 4. And remember, they're going to stay as far away from each other as possible. So I'm actually going to add them in the corners of this Van de Graaff. And a Van de Graaff, you can think of as just a piece of metal that collects charge. So we have two pieces of metal, conductors, that one is neutral, one is charged. So this is no longer neutral. This is negative. Okay, so now we're going to bring them together. And to bring them together, here, but I'm going to make this one touch. And when they touch, they become one. Because they're both metal, they become like one. And as soon as they become like one, all this negative charge wants to spread out as far away as possible, right? So these 4 negatives, they now have all this extra space to spread out. So you're going to get a redistribution of the negative. The negative is going to flood into the pi tin. Let's write the pi tin. Let's just so we don't forget. Pi tin Van de Graaff. So these negatives are going to flood in. So I'm going to erase them. And they're going to spread across this because this is now one item, one piece of metal. And they're going to go as far away as possible as they can get. Maybe this corner, and maybe this corner. They're going to spread themselves out, and they have to use the new area. So this is one item. The negative charges have redistributed across the entire item. What is the charge of this one now piece of metal? So the whole thing would be negative. Now let's do the next step. So we've done this step where they've touched. Now we're going to pull them back apart, and we're going to try to figure out the charge of each. So to pull them back apart, going to so we have two different items here. We have a pan now and a Van de Graaff. And now we just have to count the charges and look for the net charge. So this has 4 pluses and 4 minuses in the middle. 4 pluses and 4 minuses. And then you see they both have the negative charges. So this has now become negative. Right? And this has stayed negative. It's a little less negative than it started though, right? Because the pi tin absorbed some of the charge. So the end product here would be, we have the piton is negative, the Van de Graaff is negative, and then let's talk about the actual means of charging the items. What was the major means of doing that? Well, the items touched. So we have four options: friction, induction, conduction, or grounding. And in this, the friction would be if they came together and rubbed together, like a balloon on a sweater. Conductions if they touch. Inductions if they charge each other by not touching. And grounding would be if something came along and grounded it to the ground. And this one's pretty obvious. They touch. So the major way that these are charged is by conduction.